Broken heart at my son's wedding. In front of 120 guests, my new daughter-in-law stood up, pointed straight at me and said loudly, "Give me your apartment keys now." Everyone turned toward us, shocked. I froze. My hands shook as whispers spread across the hall. Some guests gasped, others covered their mouths, but she didn't stop there. When I refused, she stormed closer, her eyes burning with anger, and before I could utter another word, slap. Her hand landed across my face. The sound echoed through the hall. I felt my cheeks sting with pain, but the deeper pain was in my heart. My own son, the groom, just stood there in silence, watching. I picked up my purse slowly, straightened my dress, and walked out of the hall without looking back. Nobody followed me. Nobody asked me if I was all right. My tears mixed with the heavy makeup on my face. Outside, I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling, and I dialed a number I had not called in years. When the man answered, my voice broke as I said only 3 words. "It's time, please." Exactly 45 minutes later, the heavy doors of the wedding hall opened again. A tall man in a dark suit stepped inside. The guests turned, and when they saw who it was, people began to cry. My son's new bride dropped her glass. My son's knees weakened, and murmurs swept through the crowd. Who was this man? Why did his presence shake the hall to its core? Viewers, my name is Margaret. I am 68 years old, and I am speaking to you from Chicago, Illinois. Before I take you deep into this story, I want to pause and tell you something important. Please, if you're listening right now, don't forget to subscribe, like this story, and click the notification button so you never miss what is coming next. Trust me, you will not want to miss a single chapter. And I'd also love to know, from which part of the country are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Now let me take you back to how it all began, because that shocking moment at the wedding was not the start. It was the explosion of years of silence, sacrifice, and hidden secrets. I was never the kind of woman who wanted to live off her children. I worked all my life. My late husband, Robert, and I built our small apartment together. He passed away 15 years ago, leaving me with memories and just enough savings to survive. That apartment was my world. Every corner of it carried his spirit. Giving it away felt like giving away the last piece of him. My son, David, was my pride. I raised him with all the love I had. I skipped meals so he could eat. I walked to work so I could save bus fare for his books. I prayed over him every single night. When he became a lawyer, I felt my sacrifices had finally borne fruit. But as David grew older, he became more distant. He stopped calling as often, stopped visiting as much. Then, when he met Linda, the woman who would later slap me at his wedding, things changed quickly. At first, Linda was sweet, always calling me Mama Margaret, bringing me flowers, pretending to love me. I opened my heart to her. I thought I had gained a daughter. But slowly her mask slipped. She began making sly comments. "Don't you think you should move into a smaller place, Mama Margaret? Old people don't need much space." Or, "David and I could make better use of that apartment than you." I laughed it off, thinking it was just a joke. But deep down, I began to see her true colors. She wanted what I had worked for all my life. Months before the wedding, I overheard her whispering to David when they visited. She thought I was asleep. She said, "Once we marry, she has to hand over the keys. That apartment will be ours." David didn't respond, but he also didn't defend me. That silence cut me deeply. Still, I never imagined she would dare humiliate me on the most important day of his life. In front of 120 guests, she demanded what I had built with my blood and tears. And when I stood my ground, she raised her hand against me. But viewers, listen carefully. Sometimes silence hides secrets. Sometimes patience hides strength. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room has the loudest power. That is why, when I made that phone call, I knew everything was about to change. The man who walked into the hall 45 minutes later was not just any man. He was someone they never expected to see again. His presence alone brought people to their knees. His story is tied to mine, and his connection will leave you speechless. I'll tell you more, but before I do, remember, life has a way of teaching us lessons at the most painful times. Never let anyone, no matter how close, disrespect you or rob you of your dignity. Because dignity, once lost, is hard to recover. As the tall man's eyes locked on mine from across the hall, my heart pounded. I knew the storm I had tried to avoid for years was about to break loose. And then, he called my name. Loudly, firmly. Every head turned toward me again. That was when the entire hall erupted into chaos. The tall man's voice thundered through the wedding hall. Margaret. The room went silent. The music stopped, glasses froze halfway in the air, and even the children who had been running around stopped moving. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't heard his voice in over 20 years. He started walking toward me with steady steps, each one echoing across the marble floor. His eyes never left mine. Linda, my new daughter-in-law, stumbled back into David's arms, whispering, "No, this can't be happening. Why is he here?" Some guests covered their mouths. Others started whispering his name in disbelief. Tears flowed from faces I didn't expect. My son stood frozen, caught between his bride's trembling grip and the burning stare of the man approaching me. I felt weak in my knees. My memories came rushing back. Memories I had locked away. Memories of betrayal, loss, and secrets that I thought had been buried forever. The man stopped a few feet away from me. His voice, though calm, carried a weight that silenced even the whispers. "You called me, Margaret. I came. But do you really want me to do this here, in front of them all?" I lowered my eyes, torn between shame and strength. Slowly I nodded. "Yes," I whispered. The guests leaned forward, desperate to understand. David finally found his voice. "Who is this man? Why is everyone crying?" Linda clung to him tighter, her face pale. "Don't ask, David, please don't ask." But David's voice grew sharper. "No, I want to know. Who are you? What do you want with my mother?" The man looked straight at David, then at Linda, then back at the guests. His jaw clenched, and for a moment he said nothing. The silence grew unbearable. You could hear hearts beating faster. Finally he spoke. "My name is Jonathan." He paused, letting the name sink in. "And I am the man who knows the truth about this family, truths that have been hidden for too long." The hall erupted in gasps. Some older relatives grabbed their heads, others began whispering louder. It can't be him." Linda broke down crying, burying her face in her hands. David pulled her back in confusion. "Why are you crying? Do you know this man?" But she couldn't answer. Her sobs filled the hall. Viewers, let me pause here and remind you again. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification bell if you're following this story. The twists that are coming will shock you even more than what you've heard so far. And again, tell me from which part of the country you're watching this. Your support gives me the strength to keep sharing my life with you. Now let me take you back, because before Jonathan walked into that wedding hall, there was a long, painful history between us. Jonathan was not just any man. He was once my brother-in-law, my late husband Robert's younger brother. But to me he had been more than that. He was my protector after Robert's death, the one who helped me pay bills when I couldn't, the one who stood by me when I felt completely alone. But 20 years ago, everything fell apart. A family scandal erupted that tore us apart. I was accused of something I didn't do, and Jonathan disappeared, vowing never to return. The family fractured, people took sides, and I was left carrying the shame alone. Over the years, I learned to live with it, to bury the truth. But deep inside, I knew that one day, the truth would rise again, because lies never stay hidden forever. And now, on the day of my son's wedding, Jonathan had come back. David's voice shook with anger. "Why are you here now? You weren't here when my father died. You weren't here when we needed you. Why appear on my wedding day?" Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "Because the woman you married is not who she says she is. And tonight, if you give me the chance, I will show you why." The guests gasped louder. Linda screamed, "No, he's lying." She ran toward me, her hands shaking. "Why did you bring him here, old woman? Why?" Her voice cracked as she spoke, and in that moment, I saw the fear in her eyes, the kind of fear that only someone with something to hide could carry. The tension in the hall grew unbearable. Some guests tried to calm Linda, others urged Jonathan to speak. David looked at me with desperation. "Mother, what is going on? Tell me the truth." But before I could answer, Jonathan pulled out a brown envelope from inside his coat. He held it up high. "The truth," he said, "is right here." Gasps swept through the hall. Linda collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. David tried to help her up, but she pushed him away, crying, "Don't look. Don't let him show it." I stared at the envelope, my heart racing. I didn't know what Jonathan had inside, but I knew it was powerful enough to shake everything. He placed the envelope on the wedding table. His voice rang out. "Inside this envelope is proof of a betrayal so deep, it will change the way you see your wife, your marriage, and even your own family." The hall fell into dead silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Jonathan looked at me once more, his voice heavy with finality. "Margaret, do I open it now, or do I wait until after the wedding?" The decision was mine. And in that moment, I realized, whatever choice I made would destroy someone's life forever. The brown envelope sat on the wedding table like a bomb waiting to explode. Every eye in the hall was fixed on it. The music had long stopped. The waiters froze where they stood. And even the children clung to their parents' legs in silence. Jonathan's words still echoed. "Inside this envelope is proof of a betrayal so deep, it will change the way you see your wife, your marriage, and even your own family." David's voice trembled as he turned to me. "Mother, please. Do you know what this is about?" I swallowed hard, my palms damp with sweat. I don't know," I admitted truthfully. But deep down, I felt the weight of years pressing against me. The secrets I thought had died were stirring again. Linda was on the floor, her hands covering her face. "Don't open it," she screamed. Her mascara streamed down her cheeks, her wedding dress crumpled on the tiles. "David, if you love me, don't let him open it." Some guests whispered angrily. Why would she stop him if she had nothing to hide? One woman said. Another muttered, "Shame on her, ruining her wedding day." Jonathan's eyes never left David. "The choice is yours. Do you want me to reveal the truth now, or live the rest of your life in a lie?" David clenched his fists, torn between love for his new bride and fear of what was inside that envelope. I need to think," he stammered. "No." Linda cried, grabbing his arm. "Don't let him. He's here to destroy us. He hates me. He hates us." But David shook her off. For the first time, I saw something new in his eyes, doubt. Viewers, I know your hearts are racing right now, just as mine was that day. Please, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you don't miss what happens next. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this story? I'd love to know. Let me take you back again because you must understand the history between me, Jonathan, and this envelope. After my husband Robert died, I lived in silence, but Jonathan always said there were family matters left unsettled. He hinted about things Robert might have hidden, about people around us who were not who they seemed. But every time I asked, he brushed it off, saying, "The time will come." Then suddenly, Jonathan vanished. No letter. No goodbye. Just gone. Rumors spread. Some said he stole money. Others said he betrayed the family. I never believed it. But nobody ever saw him again. Until that wedding day. And now he was standing there, holding an envelope that could tear everything apart. David looked around the hall, his face pale. "What betrayal are you talking about?" "Betrayal from who?" Jonathan's voice was firm. "From the woman you just married." The guests gasped loudly, some even shouting. "What? On her wedding day?" Linda screamed again, this time crawling toward me on her knees. She clutched at my dress, sobbing. "Please, Margaret. Please stop him. If you ever cared about me, please don't let him open it." Her tears soaked the fabric of my gown, but my heart hardened. I thought about the slap she gave me just an hour earlier, about the humiliation in front of 120 guests. My hand trembled as I pushed her back gently. "This is not in my hands anymore," I said quietly. Linda's scream pierced the hall. She turned to David, desperate. "David, I love you. Don't listen to him. Don't let him do this. You're my husband now, you promised to protect me." David's voice cracked. "Then tell me the truth, Linda. What is in that envelope? If you're innocent, why are you so afraid?" She shook her head violently, her hair flying. No. Don't make me say it." Jonathan stepped forward, his hand on the envelope. "Then I will." He tore open the flap. The guests leaned forward, breaths held. He pulled out several photographs, yellowed with age, and a stack of documents clipped together. Linda let out a wail, so loud it silenced even the whispers. No. Please, not here. Jonathan held up the first photograph for all to see. My blood ran cold. David staggered back, his mouth falling open. The hall erupted in chaos. Because in that photograph, Linda was standing with a man I knew all too well. A man who should have been long gone. And that man was my late husband, Robert. The hall shook with cries and gasps as Jonathan held up the photograph. My heart felt like it stopped beating. My late husband, Robert, the man I buried 15 years ago, was in that picture, standing beside Linda. The guests surged forward, desperate to see. Some covered their faces in disbelief. Others grabbed at their phones to take photos, as if proof would help them make sense of the madness. David clutched the edge of a chair, his knuckles white. His voice cracked. That's impossible. My father is dead. And Linda, she wasn't even in our lives back then. Jonathan's face was grim. Look closely, David. Look at the date stamped on the corner of that photo. This wasn't taken yesterday. This was taken years ago. Long before she met you. David staggered forward, snatching the photo from Jonathan's hand. His eyes scanned the date at the bottom. Slowly, his knees buckled. No, this can't be real. That was after Dad's accident, after we buried him. The hall filled with cries of shock. Someone shouted. Does this mean Robert didn't die? Or was it a lie all along? I pressed my hands to my mouth. My whole body trembled. Could it be true? Had Robert been alive all these years? And why was Linda, the woman who had just slapped me and married my son, standing beside him? Linda shrieked, falling to her knees. It's not what you think. Please don't believe him. It's not what it looks like. Jonathan shook his head, pulling out the documents. Oh, it's exactly what it looks like. The truth is uglier than anyone here can imagine. The hall grew louder. Guests argued, pointing at Linda, shouting at David, some demanding answers, others begging Jonathan to explain fully. David grabbed Linda by the arms, shaking her. Tell me, Linda. Tell me the truth. Why are you in that picture with my father? Her lips trembled, tears streaming down her cheeks. She couldn't speak. She just kept sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Over and over, like a broken record. Jonathan slammed the documents onto the table. That woman you married today is not who she claims to be. She isn't just some sweet, innocent bride. She has been connected to your family far longer than you know. And she, he paused, his eyes narrowing on Linda, was with Robert in his final days. She knows the truth about his death. The hall went dead silent again. I stumbled back, clutching my chest. My voice cracked as I whispered, What are you saying, Jonathan? That Linda, my daughter-in-law, was with Robert before he died? Jonathan nodded slowly. Yes. And not only that. He picked up another photograph and held it high. She was living with him. The guests screamed. Some rushed forward. Others dragged their children out of the hall, as if shielding them from a storm. David's face turned ghostly pale. His whole body shook as he stared at the photograph. No, this isn't true. This can't be true. Tell me it's not true, Linda. Tell me you weren't living with my father. Linda collapsed fully to the floor, her hands over her ears, wailing like a woman possessed. I didn't want it this way. I didn't want any of this to come out. Viewers, can you see how deep betrayal can cut? Can you imagine being in my shoes, standing in the middle of my son's wedding hall, learning that the woman he married had ties to my dead husband? This is why I tell you, never ignore small signs. A lie, no matter how long it is buried, will always rise again. And please, if you're following this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button, because the truth that is about to unfold will shake you even more. Also, let me know in the comments from which part of the country you are watching this. I want to hear from you. Back in the hall, chaos was erupting. Some guests demanded the police be called. Others shouted that the wedding was cursed. My son fell to his knees, his head in his hands. How could this happen? How could I marry my father's woman? Linda screamed louder. No. It wasn't like that. He forced me. I had no choice. Her voice was hoarse, broken, desperate. Jonathan's glare was sharp. Don't twist the truth, Linda. You chose to be with him. And now you chose to marry his son. The words sliced through the hall like a blade. Guests screamed again. Some fainted. I stood frozen, tears streaming down my face, whispering to myself, Robert, what did you do? And why did you leave me with all this pain? Jonathan stepped closer to Linda, his voice low but powerful. You thought your secret would stay buried forever. But I promised Robert on his deathbed that one day, I would tell the truth. Linda looked up at him in terror. No, don't say it. Don't tell them what happened that night. Please. The hall leaned forward in anticipation, every heart pounding, every breath held. Jonathan's jaw tightened. His voice dropped to a growl. Then tell them yourself, Linda. Tell them what you did to Robert the night he died. The hall erupted in screams again. David grabbed Linda by the shoulders, shaking her violently. What did you do to my father? And Linda, her face pale, her lips trembling, finally opened her mouth. But the words she spoke made the entire hall collapse into chaos. I killed him. The moment Linda's words left her lips, I killed him. The wedding hall exploded into pandemonium. Some guests screamed and ran toward the doors, others fell into their chairs in shock. A few fainted right where they stood. The priest who had just blessed their marriage dropped his Bible, his hands shaking uncontrollably. David staggered backward, his face ghost white, his mouth opening and closing without sound. He looked like the ground had been ripped from beneath him. I clutched the edge of a chair for support, my legs trembling. My ears rang with her words. Killed him? She killed Robert? My husband? The man I mourned for 15 years? Jonathan didn't flinch. His eyes were locked on her. He had expected this moment. Linda crumpled to the floor again, sobbing so hard her body shook. Her wedding dress pooled around her like a cloud of shame. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to, she wailed. David's voice finally broke free. It was a roar of anguish. What do you mean you didn't mean to? You killed my father. My father. His fist shook as if he was seconds away from striking her. Jonathan grabbed his arm. Don't touch her. Let her speak. Let everyone hear the truth tonight. The hall fell into an uneasy silence again. People leaned forward, holding their breath, waiting for her to explain. Linda covered her face with her hands, her voice muffled by her sobs. I was young. I was desperate. I didn't know what I was doing. Speak clearly. Jonathan snapped. No more hiding. Tell them how you met Robert. Tell them everything. Linda's hands dropped slowly from her face. Her eyes were bloodshot, her mascara smeared into black rivers down her cheeks. She looked at me first. I met Robert long before I met David. He wasn't the man you thought he was, Margaret. He had a life nobody knew about. Gasps filled the hall again. My heart twisted. What are you saying, Linda? My Robert loved me. He was a good man. Linda shook her head violently. No, you didn't know him like I did. He had secrets, dark ones. I was just a teenager when I met him. He promised to help me, to take care of me. But instead, she choked on her words. Jonathan's voice was stern. Say it. Linda broke down again, her voice shaking. He kept me hidden. Like his little secret. He told me he'd never leave you, Margaret, but he couldn't let me go either. I wanted to escape, but he controlled me. The guests erupted again, some crying, others shaking their heads in disbelief. David fell to his knees, his voice hoarse. Stop, please stop. I can't hear this. But Jonathan didn't let up. And then what happened, Linda? How did Robert die? Linda's lips trembled. She closed her eyes as if the memory itself was torture. That night, he came home drunk. He was angry, shouting. He grabbed me, said I could never leave him. I tried to push him away. I begged him to let me go. He wouldn't listen. He hit me. Her voice cracked into a scream. So I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a glass vase. I didn't even think. I swung it. It hit his head. He fell. And he never got up again. The hall gasped in unison. Some people cried openly, others cursed under their breath. I felt my whole world collapsing. My legs gave out. And I sank into a chair, my chest aching. The man I loved, the father of my child, killed, and by the woman who was now my daughter-in-law. David's eyes were wild, filled with rage and despair. You killed him. And then his voice broke. And then you married me. Linda sobbed harder. I didn't plan this. I swear. I thought it was over. I thought the past was buried. But then I met you, David. And I fell in love with you. I didn't mean for this to happen. The hall erupted again. Some shouted, liar. She used him. Others yelled, this wedding is cursed. Jonathan raised his hand for silence. His face was cold as stone. There is more, he said. Robert's death wasn't just a crime of passion. What Linda did afterward will make you question everything. The guests froze again. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. Linda's head snapped toward him, her eyes wide with terror. No, don't. Please, Jonathan, don't tell them. They'll never forgive me. Jonathan's voice cut like a knife. Tell them what you did with Robert's body after you killed him. The hall went completely silent. Linda's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her hands trembled as she reached for David, but he pulled away, disgust on his face. Jonathan's eyes burned into her. Say it, Linda. Tell them where Robert really went that night. Tell them why there was no body in the coffin Margaret buried. The hall erupted into screams. People gasped so hard it sounded like a wave crashing through the room. I froze. My blood ran cold. No body in the coffin? I gripped the edge of the table, my whole body shaking. My voice was barely a whisper. What are you saying, Jonathan? Are you telling me that Robert's coffin was empty? Jonathan's eyes locked on mine. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. His voice was low, heavy, final. Yes, Margaret. Robert's body was never in that coffin. Linda knows exactly what happened to him after she killed him. The hall exploded into chaos once more, and Linda let out a scream so piercing, it silenced the entire room. The hall was madness. People shouted over one another. Some screamed that the wedding was cursed. Others demanded that the police be called immediately. A few guests fainted outright, while others rushed outside, gasping for air. My head spun. Jonathan's words echoed like thunder. Robert's body was never in that coffin. I buried my face in my hands, trembling. No, that can't be true. I buried him myself. I stood by that grave. I cried until I had no tears left. Don't tell me it was all a lie. Jonathan's voice cut through my denial, sharp and unrelenting. Margaret, what you buried was an empty box. There was no body inside. The room erupted again. People screamed and cursed. David staggered backward until he crashed into a chair. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, his voice breaking. Stop, please stop. I can't take this anymore. First she kills him, now you say he wasn't even buried. He turned to Linda, shaking violently. Tell me what you did with my father's body. Linda sat on the floor, rocking back and forth, her wedding dress stained with tears and dirt. Her voice came out in a broken whisper. I can't say it. If I say it, I'll lose everything. The guests leaned closer, hungry for her words, terrified of the truth. Jonathan slammed his fist on the table. You already lost everything the moment you killed him. Now tell them what you did with his body. Linda's sobs grew louder, but she still refused to answer. She shook her head violently, covering her ears as if she could block out the entire hall. I rose slowly from my chair, my legs trembling, my voice quivering but strong enough to cut through the noise. Linda, if you ever had even a shred of respect for me, for the family you've destroyed, tell us the truth. I deserve to know what really happened to my husband. The guests fell silent again. All eyes turned to Linda. She looked up at me, her face ghostly pale, her lips trembling. She whispered so faintly I almost didn't hear it. I didn't bury him. David fell to his knees, his hands clutching his head. Then where is he? Where is my father's body? Linda's eyes darted to Jonathan. He knows. He helped me. He was there after it happened. The hall gasped. Heads whipped toward Jonathan. Some guests screamed. What? Others shouted. Is this true? Jonathan's jaw clenched, his face tight with anger, but not at the accusation. Yes. I was there. I helped her, but not in the way you think. The tension grew unbearable. People were standing on their chairs, desperate to hear the truth. David lunged forward, grabbing Jonathan by the collar. Tell me where my father is. Tell me now. Jonathan shoved him back, his voice booming. Your father's body was never buried. It was hidden. Hidden in a place so close, yet so far, that none of you ever thought to look. The guests cried out again. My knees nearly gave way. My heart pounded in my chest so loud it drowned out everything else. Linda's scream tore through the hall. Stop. Don't say it. Please, Jonathan, if you care about me at all, don't tell them where we put him. Jonathan turned to her, his voice like steel. They have to know, Linda. This family has lived in lies for too long. He looked at David, then at me. His face softened slightly, though his eyes still burned with intensity. Margaret. David. Robert's body is not in a graveyard. He paused, letting the silence stretch until it strangled the hall. It's in this very building. The room erupted into chaos. Screams, cries, and shouts filled the air. People fled for the doors, terrified. Some clutched at their chests as if their hearts might burst. I froze, my blood turning to ice. My voice cracked. In this building? What do you mean? Jonathan's eyes swept over the wedding hall, then locked onto a single spot. The large oak door that led down to the storage cellar beneath. He raised his hand slowly, pointing toward it. Robert's body is down there. The entire hall went silent in horror. Linda shrieked, covering her face, her body convulsing with sobs. No. No. Don't open it. Please don't open it. David's eyes widened in terror and rage. He turned toward the cellar door, his whole body trembling. And then, without another word, he bolted toward it. The hall held its breath as David stormed toward the oak cellar door. His face was pale, his eyes wild, his fists clenched tight. Guests shouted after him. Don't go down there. Wait for the police. It's dangerous. But David didn't stop. His shoes echoed against the marble floor with each determined step. Linda clawed at the ground, her voice raw from screaming. David, no. Please don't open it. Please, I beg you. She dragged herself across the floor, trying to reach him, but her dress tangled around her legs, slowing her down. Jonathan stepped forward, his voice booming. David, listen to me. If you open that door, there is no turning back. What you see will change you forever. David spun around, his chest heaving. You think I care? He was my father. If his body is really in there, then I need to see it. His voice cracked as he shouted, the pain of betrayal heavy in his words. Do you have any idea what it feels like to marry a woman who killed your own father? To find out you buried an empty coffin? I need the truth, Jonathan. I need it now. The hall buzzed with whispers, fearful murmurs sweeping through the crowd. Some guests backed away from the cellar door as if it might burst open on its own. I pressed my hands to my chest, tears streaming down my face. David, my son, please. I'm not sure your heart can take what's down there. But David ignored me. His hands gripped the iron latch on the door. His knuckles turned white as he pulled. Linda shrieked again, her voice tearing through the hall. Don't open it. Please. If you open it, you'll hate me forever. David froze for a moment, his hand still on the latch. He turned his head slowly toward her. His eyes narrowed, his voice cold. I already hate you. Linda let out a strangled cry and collapsed completely, her face buried in her hands. Jonathan's voice cut through the tension like a blade. David, if you're going to open it, do it slowly. What's inside is not what you expect. The hall went completely silent again. Every eye locked on David. Every breath was held. Even the chandeliers seemed to stop swaying, as if the air itself had frozen. David gritted his teeth, his face twisted with determination and fury. With one sharp pull, he yanked the door open. A cold gust of air rushed out from the dark cellar, sweeping across the hall like a whisper from the grave. Some guests screamed. Others stumbled backward, clutching one another in terror. The staircase leading down was swallowed in darkness, the smell of damp stone and something older, heavier, drifting upward. David grabbed a candle from the nearest table, his hand trembling as he lit it. If his body is down there, he growled, I'll find it. He placed one foot on the top step. Linda let out a final scream, so raw and piercing it silenced the hall. No. You don't understand. It's not just your father down there. The entire hall erupted in confusion. Guests gasped, shouted, some fainted again. Jonathan's face hardened. He stepped toward the cellar, his jaw clenched. "What do you mean, Linda?" But Linda only sobbed, shaking her head violently. "Please don't go down there, please don't." David ignored her. Candle in hand, he descended the first step, then the second, his shadow stretching long across the hall. I could barely breathe. My legs shook so badly I had to cling to a chair. Every step he took felt like a drumbeat of doom. Finally, his candlelight disappeared into the blackness of the cellar. Seconds passed. The hall was silent. Only Linda's muffled sobs filled the air. Then suddenly, David's scream tore through the darkness. The candle clattered to the floor, and his voice, raw with horror, echoed up the stairs. "Oh my God, there are bodies down here." David's scream rattled the hall like thunder. Guests shrieked and stampeded toward the exit, their voices colliding into chaos. Bodies? Did he say bodies? Some women fainted into the arms of strangers, while men shouted to call the police. Children clung to their mothers, crying uncontrollably. I felt my knees buckle. My hand flew to my mouth as if to keep my soul from leaving my body. No, oh God, no. Linda crawled across the floor toward the cellar door, her face streaked with tears. She stretched her hand out, but couldn't find the strength to climb down. "David, please come back up. Don't look. Don't look any further." Her voice cracked like shattered glass. Jonathan stood frozen, his face unreadable. He didn't rush, didn't panic. Instead, he lowered his head slightly and whispered, almost to himself, "So it's still there, all of it." I snapped my head toward him. "You knew." My voice shook with fury and fear. "You knew this horror was down there and you let my son walk into it?" Jonathan's eyes lifted to meet mine, calm but hard. Sometimes the truth has to be seen, not told. He wouldn't have believed it otherwise. Before I could answer, David's voice boomed again from below, raw and trembling. "There are 3 bodies here." His candle flickered in the dark, casting long, quivering shadows up the cellar wall. The hall went silent for a heartbeat. Then the crowd erupted into chaos again. 3. Dear Lord, what is happening? I staggered forward, gripping the railing, peering down the stairs. "David, whose bodies? Tell us." His voice echoed, ragged and horrified. "One is Dad. I can see his suit, the one he wore that night. Oh God, it's him. It's really him," his voice cracked. "And the other 2? I don't know, they look fresh." A ripple of terror ran through the hall. Guests pressed their backs to the walls, as if the cellar itself might come alive and drag them down. Linda wailed, pounding her fists against the floor. "Stop. Please stop. Don't make him say it." Her voice dropped to a whisper, hoarse and broken. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way." Jonathan stepped closer to the cellar, his voice carrying a grim weight. "David, look carefully at the other bodies. Describe them." "No," Linda screamed, scrambling to her feet, rushing at Jonathan. She clawed at his arm, shaking her head violently. "Don't make him. Please don't make him." Jonathan shoved her off, his voice sharp. "If you're innocent, Linda, you have nothing to fear. But if you're guilty, the truth will come out tonight." The guests gasped, torn between fear and fascination. Some edged closer, desperate to hear more. Others prayed loudly, their voices trembling. David's shaky voice floated up again. One of them, "It looks like a man, but I don't recognize him. He has a scar on his face." The other, his voice faltered. "Oh my God. She's wearing a wedding dress." The hall went dead silent. Every head turned toward Linda. Her scream tore from her throat, long and haunting, before she collapsed completely onto the floor. Her body shook violently as she sobbed into her hands. Jonathan's face hardened. "So that's it. You didn't just kill Robert. You've been hiding more than anyone imagined." I couldn't breathe. My whole world tilted. "A wedding dress? Who is she?" David's voice rose again, filled with horror. "Mom, it's her sister. It's Rebecca. Her body's down here." The guests gasped so loudly the chandeliers rattled. Someone shouted, "Rebecca? But she disappeared 3 years ago." Linda screamed again, clutching her head, rocking back and forth. "I didn't kill her. I didn't kill her. It wasn't me." Jonathan's eyes narrowed, his voice sharp as a blade. Then tell us who did. Because if you don't, I'll drag you down those stairs myself, and the truth will bury you alive. The hall quivered with fear and anticipation. All eyes locked on Linda as her lips trembled, her body convulsing with sobs. Finally, she looked up, her eyes swollen and red, and whispered the words that froze every heart in the room. It was your son. The hall froze at Linda's words. It was your son. The sentence hung heavy in the air like smoke. Guests gasped, some shouting in confusion, others looking wildly between Jonathan and me. Whispers filled the hall. Whose son? Did she mean David? Or Jonathan's boy? My heart stopped. My voice shook as I whispered, Linda. What do you mean? Which son? David stumbled halfway up the cellar steps, his face pale and drenched in sweat, his hands trembling. No, you can't mean me. I loved Rebecca like my own sister. Don't you dare say my name. Linda's body trembled violently as she pointed a shaking finger toward Jonathan. It was his son. Michael. Michael was the one who killed Rebecca. The hall erupted in chaos. Guests screamed and argued. Some shouted, Michael? But he left town years ago. Others gasped, No, she's lying. Jonathan's face turned stone cold. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched, but his voice was eerily calm. Be careful with your tongue, Linda. Michael may be my son, but he is not a murderer. Linda's laughter cut through the tension, high-pitched, bitter, broken. You think he's innocent? You don't know what your own son did behind your back. He loved Rebecca, but when she rejected him, he snapped. He killed her on the night she disappeared. Gasps rippled across the hall like waves. I felt the blood drain from my face. My mind reeled back to the night Rebecca vanished. The endless searches, the unanswered questions. Could this be true? Could Michael have been involved all along? David clutched the railing, his knuckles white. His voice cracked. Why didn't you say anything before? Why hide her body in the cellar? Linda's sobs grew louder. Because I was there when it happened. I helped him cover it up. If I hadn't, Michael would have gone to prison for life. I thought I was protecting the family, but it only made everything worse. The hall broke into two sides, some shouting that Linda was lying to save herself, others insisting the truth was finally coming out. Jonathan's voice thundered above the noise. You expect us to believe this? That my son killed Rebecca and you just happened to be there? Convenient, isn't it? Linda's eyes widened with desperation. I swear it. He begged me to help him. He said if I told anyone, he'd destroy me too. I kept his secret all these years, but now it's all out. I felt dizzy, as if the ground beneath me was shifting. My hand clutched my chest. If this is true, Jonathan, then your son killed my husband's niece, and Linda covered it up. David let out a guttural cry, halfway between grief and rage. And you buried them both together, with my father. Like trophies. The hall shook with uproar. Guests shoved one another, some trying to flee, others demanding the police come immediately. But Jonathan didn't move. His face was unreadable, his voice low but sharp. Linda, if you're telling the truth, then you should have nothing to fear when I bring Michael here. He will answer for himself. The crowd gasped again. Michael's still alive, someone whispered. Linda froze, her body going rigid. No, you can't bring him here. Jonathan's eyes narrowed. Why not? Her lips quivered. Tears streamed down her cheeks. And then she whispered words that made the hall explode into panic. Because Michael's body is down there too. The hall erupted in screams. Some guests collapsed. Others clawed for the exits, shouting, 3 bodies? Now 4. David stumbled backward on the steps, his face pale with terror. No, oh God, no. I felt the world tilt, my breath stolen from my lungs. You mean? Your son is also dead. Linda let out a hollow, broken laugh. Yes, and I'm not the one who killed him. The hall froze again, all eyes turning to Jonathan. And his face, for the first time that night, cracked with shock. The hall was a war zone of panic. Guests shoved through the doors, trampling flower petals and chairs, some screaming, some sobbing uncontrollably. Others pressed themselves against the walls, too shaken to move. But in the middle of the chaos, time slowed. Linda's words still echoed like poison in the air. Michael's body is down there too. Jonathan's face hardened. Yet the flicker of shock was undeniable. His lips pressed into a thin line, his fists trembling at his sides. For the first time that night, the unshakable man looked broken. David stood frozen halfway up the stairs, candlelight flickering against his pale face. His voice trembled as it rose from the cellar's darkness. She's telling the truth. There's another body down here. A young man. Oh God, it really is Michael. The hall erupted again. Guests wailed, women collapsed into sobs, and men shook their heads in disbelief. I clutched my chest, tears pouring down my cheeks. This is madness. 3 lives, maybe 4, destroyed in silence. And all under the roof of this hall. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors of the hall burst open. Police stormed in, their radios crackling, voices firm and commanding. Nobody leaves. Step back from the cellar. 2 officers rushed to steady me as my knees nearly gave way. Another rushed toward David, helping him up the stairs. But David's eyes burned with fury. He pointed a shaking finger at Linda, his voice cracking. She killed him. She killed them all. Don't let her go. Linda let out a scream so piercing it silenced the entire hall. I didn't kill Michael. I didn't kill Rebecca. I only hid their bodies. I was protecting someone. Jonathan stepped forward, his voice thunderous. Enough lies, Linda. Who were you protecting? Linda's whole body convulsed as she collapsed to her knees, sobbing violently. If I tell you, none of us will survive it. The police seized her by the arms, pulling her upright. But Linda thrashed, her eyes wild, her voice desperate. It wasn't me. It wasn't Michael. It was Robert. The hall went dead silent. Every breath caught. Every heart froze. I staggered backward, nearly collapsing. Robert. My voice broke. My husband. The man lying dead in that cellar. Linda's tears streamed down her face as she nodded frantically. Yes. Robert killed Rebecca in a fit of rage the night she rejected Michael. Michael tried to stop him, but Robert turned on him too. I only helped cover it up after. I was terrified. He said if I ever told, he'd kill me next. The guests gasped as if the air had been punched from their lungs. Jonathan's face darkened. His voice came out low and deadly. So Robert murdered them both. And you kept his secret. I felt my world shatter. My chest tightened as the weight of the truth crushed me. My husband, the man I had loved, mourned, cried for, had been a monster hiding behind a mask of gentleness. My knees buckled and I fell into a chair, shaking uncontrollably. David's voice cracked with fury. You're lying again. My father would never. But before he could finish, Jonathan's voice cut in, sharp as a blade. Think, David. Why do you think his body was hidden down there too? Someone turned on him after the murders. Someone who wanted to silence him forever. The police tightened their grip on Linda. But her laughter, harsh, broken and chilling, filled the hall. Yes, he was silenced. Do you want to know who did it? Do you really want the truth? Every eye locked on her. Her lips quivered, her eyes darting toward me. And then with a sick, trembling smile, she whispered, It was your mother. The hall erupted in gasps and screams. My body froze. My mind went blank. David's head snapped toward me, his face twisted in shock. Mom? And all around us, the hall filled with chaos once more. As the final secret shattered everything we thought we knew, the hall exploded in uproar. She said the mother killed him. Someone screamed. No, that can't be true, another shouted. Guests clutched one another, eyes wide with horror, mouths open in disbelief. I sat frozen, the weight of Linda's accusation crashing down on me like 1,000 stones. My chest heaved, my lips trembling, but no words came out. David's eyes were wild red from tears and rage. He staggered toward me, his voice shaking. Mom, tell me it isn't true. Tell me you didn't. You couldn't. Tears poured down my cheeks. David, I swear on my life I never touched your father. I loved him even when he was cruel. Even when he abandoned me. I never raised a hand against him. But Linda's laughter cut through the hall, bitter and venomous. Liar. You found out what he did to Rebecca and you snapped. You killed him that night in cold blood. And then you pretended to grieve, standing by an empty coffin. The guests gasped again. their eyes darting between me and Linda like they were watching a deadly duel. Jonathan's voice thundered. Enough! Don't just throw accusations into the air. Where is your proof, Linda? Linda's chest rose and fell violently. Her lips trembled, but then she spat the words out with venom. I was there when she did it. I saw her with the knife. The entire hall recoiled in shock. I shot to my feet, shaking so badly I nearly collapsed. That's a lie. I never even held a knife that night. My voice broke, rising in desperation. Jonathan, David, you know me. You know I couldn't do this. The police officer stepped forward, his notepad in hand. His voice was firm. Ma'am, given the gravity of these accusations, we will need to take your statement as well. If there's evidence, it will come to light. David turned on Linda, fury blazing in his eyes. You're a monster. You destroyed our family, and now you're trying to drag my mother down with you. He lunged forward, but officers held him back. Linda's laughter grew louder, echoing eerily through the hall. You think I'm the monster? Look around you. Your father was a killer, your uncle was a liar, and your mother, she jabbed her finger toward me, her voice sharp as a blade, is a murderer. The words sliced through me. My breath caught. My vision blurred with tears. Jonathan stepped forward, his eyes locked on Linda with deadly intensity. If you really saw her kill Robert, then why stay silent all this time? Why not tell the police from the start? Linda's laughter faltered. She froze, her eyes darting nervously. The hall went silent, waiting. Jonathan's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. Unless, of course, you were the one holding the knife. The crowd gasped. Murmurs rose like a tide. Linda's face drained of color. Her lips quivered. She shook her head violently. No, it wasn't me. But Jonathan didn't let up. Then prove it. If Margaret killed Robert, show us something only the killer would know. Because right now, all you've given us are words. And words won't save you. Linda's eyes darted wildly. Her body trembled. Sweat rolled down her forehead. Then slowly, she reached into her dress pocket. Her hand shook as she pulled something out. A small, blood-stained handkerchief. The hall gasped in horror. Linda held it up, her voice cracking. This was hers. I found it by Robert's body that night. She dropped it when she killed him. All eyes turned to me. My knees gave way, and I collapsed into a chair. My voice broke into a sob. That's impossible. I never saw that handkerchief before in my life. David stared at the cloth, his face pale, his voice trembling. Mom, tell me it's not yours, please. My tears blurred everything. I could barely breathe. It's not mine, David. I swear to you it's not mine. But the guests whispered, doubt spreading like wildfire. The police officer took the handkerchief carefully, sealing it in a bag. His voice was grim. We'll run tests. If this cloth belongs to Margaret, then. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Jonathan's face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with suspicion, not at me, but at Linda. He muttered under his breath, too low for most to hear. You've gone too far this time, Linda. And then, before anyone could react, the cellar door creaked. All eyes turned. The candlelight flickered upward from the darkness. And a voice, weak, raspy, but unmistakable, rose from the cellar. Stop, she's lying. I saw who really killed me. The hall froze. Every guest screamed. Because the voice belonged to Robert. The hall shook with screams. Women fainted into chairs. Men stumbled backward, clutching their chests. Some shouted prayers. Others clawed at the doors in blind panic. But I couldn't move. My blood turned to ice. My husband's voice, the man I buried, the man they said was lying dead in the cellar, had just spoken. Stop, she's lying. I saw who really killed me. The words echoed up the staircase like a ghost dragging chains. David froze halfway up the steps, his face pale, his lips trembling. Dad. His voice cracked like a child's. Dad, is that really you? The candlelight flickered again from below. A shadow moved, slow and staggering, against the stone wall. Linda shrieked, clawing at her own face, her eyes wild. No, it's not him. He's dead, I swear he's dead. He can't be here. Jonathan's eyes narrowed, his voice calm but sharp. Then who's speaking, Linda? The officers rushed toward the cellar door, Flashlights raised, guns drawn. Who's down there? Identify yourself. But the voice came again, weak, rasping, yet chillingly clear. It's me, Robert. And I never died. The hall fell into a stunned silence. Even the chandelier seemed to stop swaying. I staggered to my feet, gripping the back of a chair for balance. My chest heaved, tears flooding my eyes. Robert, if that's really you, come out. Please come out. For a moment, nothing. Only silence. Then the sound of footsteps. Slow, dragging, heavy. Everyone watched, frozen, as a figure emerged from the cellar's darkness. The sight stole the breath from my lungs. It was Robert. His face gaunt, his skin pale, his hair tangled. His suit, the same suit he wore the night he died, hung loosely from his frail frame. His eyes, sunken but burning with life, scanned the hall. Gasps filled the air. Guests stumbled backward, some falling to their knees in shock. Impossible, someone cried. This is witchcraft, another screamed. David dropped to the floor, his voice breaking into sobs. Dad, oh God. Dad. I pressed my hand to my mouth, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert, you're alive. All this time you were alive? Robert's lips curved into the faintest, bitter smile. His voice was a whisper, but it carried through the hall like a storm. Yes, I lived. And I watched as Linda tried to destroy you all. Linda's scream tore through the air. Lies. You're not real. You're a ghost. She thrashed in the arms of the police officers, her face twisted in terror. I killed you. I killed you myself. The hall gasped. Every head turned to her. Robert's eyes darkened, his voice heavy with rage. Yes, Linda. You stabbed me that night. You thought I was dead. But you were wrong. The guests erupted again, their voices colliding in chaos. Some shouted. She confessed. Others wailed in disbelief. Linda fell to the floor, shaking violently, her face buried in her hands. No, this isn't happening. Jonathan stepped forward, his voice steady, his gaze fixed on Robert. If you lived, then why hide all this time? Why let your family grieve an empty coffin? Robert's eyes flicked to me, then to David. His voice cracked. Because the truth was too dangerous. I wasn't hiding from death. I was hiding from the real killer. The hall went silent. Linda lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. No, don't you dare. Robert pointed a trembling finger toward her. His voice boomed, echoing against the walls. It wasn't just Linda. She didn't act alone. Someone else in this hall wanted me dead. The guests gasped, turning their heads wildly, searching for who he meant. And then Robert's finger shifted, slowly, deliberately, until it landed on someone no one expected. Robert's trembling finger cut through the thick silence in the wedding hall. All eyes followed it, gasping, whispering, shifting in disbelief as the truth hovered in the air like smoke before a fire. He wasn't pointing at Linda anymore. He was pointing at Jonathan. The room erupted like a storm. Some shouted, "No, that can't be." Others screamed, covering their mouths as if they had just witnessed a crime in real time. People began pushing back from their chairs, moving as though Jonathan had suddenly turned into a wild beast. Jonathan himself didn't flinch. His sharp eyes narrowed as he adjusted his tie, the corners of his lips twisting into a cold smile. He spoke with chilling calmness. So, you finally decided to crawl out of your hole, Robert. I was beginning to think Linda had finished the job properly. Gasps tore through the air. Linda, still kneeling on the floor, whipped her head toward Jonathan, her face pale as paper. No. Don't you dare drag me into this. You promised. You said I would be safe if I kept quiet. The officers tightened their grip on her arms as she thrashed. You tricked me. You said Robert was gone forever. Robert's hollow voice thundered again, each word dripping with pain. Yes, Jonathan. You were the one who wanted me dead. Linda was only your pawn. The hall spiraled into chaos again. Guests were shouting, fainting, some filming with shaky hands, others demanding the police arrest both of them immediately. I stood frozen, clutching my chest, my heart hammering so hard it felt like it would break my ribs. My eyes darted from Robert, alive but frail, to Jonathan, the man who had stood in our house so many times as a trusted family friend, offering advice, smiling, pretending to care. Why? My voice cracked, louder than I expected. Why would you do this? We trusted you, Jonathan. My children called you uncle. You stood with us when we buried an empty coffin. Jonathan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Only bitterness. Trust? You really are naive, Margaret. Robert knew the truth about me. He knew what I had been doing behind the family business. And if he had lived long enough to speak, everything I built would have crumbled. Robert's weak frame shook with anger. You embezzled from me. You drained accounts, cut corners, destroyed partnerships. I was going to expose you. And you knew it. So you tried to kill me. Jonathan's smile faded into a sneer. I didn't try, Robert. I succeeded. You shouldn't even be standing here now. Linda was supposed to finish what I start. Linda screamed again, tears streaming down her face. You lied to me. You told me he'd ruin my marriage, take away everything I had. You said if I helped, I'd be free. Jonathan's voice sharpened, his mask slipping. And you were fool enough to believe me. A snake trusts another snake only until the bite comes. The officers began advancing toward Jonathan, hands on their cuffs. But Jonathan wasn't finished. He raised his voice, commanding the room with a terrifying steadiness. You all think you've won because Robert stumbled in here like some ghost. But let me remind you, the power, the money, the influence, I own them all. Do you really think one half-dead man's word will stand against mine? The hall buzzed with fear. Some guests shifted uneasily, as if Jonathan's words had already won them over. Others shouted angrily, demanding justice. I stepped forward, tears streaking my cheeks. My voice shook, but I forced it out. Maybe money bought you silence before, Jonathan. But not tonight. Tonight, in front of 120 people, you're exposed. Every eye here saw Robert walk in. Every ear heard Linda confess. And now, every one of us has heard your true face. For the first time, Jonathan's confidence cracked. His jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to the guests around him, recording, whispering, pointing fingers. The lead officer barked. Jonathan Blake, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. Put your hands behind your back. Jonathan snarled, spinning toward the door as though to run. But before he could take 2 steps, Robert, frail as he was, staggered forward and spoke in a voice that froze Jonathan in place. You'll never escape this time, Jonathan. You stole my life once. You won't steal it again. Something in Robert's tone, commanding, final, broke Jonathan. The man who had seemed untouchable dropped his arms, the fight draining from him. The officers seized him, snapping cuffs around his wrists. Linda shrieked, still twisting in their grip. No. Please. Don't take me. He forced me. He used me. But no one listened anymore. The hall was filled with the sound of chains rattling, the click of cuffs, the murmurs of guests realizing they had witnessed history. David rushed forward, collapsing at his father's feet, clutching him as though he'd never let go. Dad. I thought I lost you. I thought you were gone forever. Robert laid a trembling hand on his son's head, tears streaking his worn face. I almost was, son. But God gave me one more chance. And I came back, not just for me, but for all of you. I stumbled forward, falling into Robert's arms. For a moment, it was as though time itself stopped. After years of pain, grief, betrayal, he was alive, and justice was finally being served. The guests, one by one, began to clap. Then cheer. Some cried openly, hugging their loved ones. Others shouted, "Justice! Justice at last!" The hall, once filled with shame and violence, now trembled with relief and triumph. The officers dragged Linda and Jonathan out, their screams echoing until the doors slammed shut. Silence fell again. Robert, weak but alive, lifted his head and addressed the guests. His voice, though cracked, carried a strength none of us could deny. Let this be a lesson to every soul here tonight. Greed destroys, lies enslave, but truth always rises. You can bury it under dirt, under blood, under years of silence. But one day, it will walk into the light. The guests erupted in applause once more. And as the night closed, with police cars' sirens wailing outside, I held Robert's hand tightly, whispering a prayer of gratitude. The wedding, once meant to mark a union, had instead uncovered betrayal, lies, and murder. But in the ashes of it all, My family was given something far greater than we expected: truth, redemption, and a second chance at life. So, to everyone watching this story, remember, never let anyone convince you that lies can hold power forever. They fall just like Jonathan fell tonight. And to those who stood with me through this journey, I ask you, please subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you never miss another story. And before you go, tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from?